Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Parivritvacharya Astotara His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivritvacharya Astotara Saraswati His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the Assembly Gauris. All glories to the Assembly Gauris. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Assembly Gauris. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Lord Spirit of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So we continue our reading from the Transcendental Diaries by His Grace Hari Sauri Prabhu. Hari Sauri Prabhu was one of Srila Prabhupada's personal servants. So we continue reading from chapter 9. 8, 1976. So this chapter begins, there's a slight disagreement between the leaders in the society at that time. I think it was New Zealand, Australia, around those countries. Some of the leaders, the disagreement was whether there was a certain Swami that Prabhupada initiated into the sannyas ashram. He was a very charismatic person, and he had many followers that was actually attracted to him. And the society, the Maharajas at that time, Madhudvis Swami, they thought that he could be a threat to the society, and they practically tried to get him removed. But it's amazing how Prabhupada handled the whole situation. Maybe I can just say in both locations. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. March 8, 1976, Sri Dharmayapur. In the early morning, Prabhupada called Krsna Goswami into his room. He told him that Madhuri Swami should be made GBC Vice Chairman for the year, and that Garga Muni should be given the GBC responsibility. If you go to Vrindavan, you will soon see Garga Muni right outside the Vrindavan Krishna Balaram Mandir, and he has all Prabhupada's DVDs and stuff there. And you won't say that this is Garga Muni, because he's not dressed in Vaishnava attire. He has long hair, kind of blonde, and he's like normal person sits there. You won't say who he is. Krishna Maharaj replied that the GBC had already considered Garga Muni, but they decided not to appoint him because he does not regularly chant his rounds. Some of Garga Muni's men have left him, complaining that his devotional standard is not strict. We often do this, right? This Prabhu can't do the service, he's not following properly, But it's amazing how Prabhupada reacts to this situation. Srila Prabhupada said that despite this, he should become a GBC member. The reason being that Garga Muni has creative energy that should be used constructively, otherwise he may become frustrated and misapplied. This is quite interesting, right? There's a person that's not following the process properly, is not chanting his rounds regularly, doesn't go for Mangal Arati. Yet, Prabhupada says that he should be made a member of the GBC. Why? Because he has creative energy. Prabhupada also told Krsna that he should become a BBT trustee because of the tremendous work his party is doing in book distribution. He suggested that Krishna be tried out for 1 year in India, not as a full trustee but as a BBT manager, to see how he does. The BBT trustees will then be Srila Prabhupada as head, Rameshwara, Bhagavan, Hamsadgur, Vidayananda, and Tamal Krishna, all for Europe and America. And for India, Gopal Krishna, Giriraj, Yashovati Nandan Prabhus. As the sun rose, Srila Prabhupada toured the temple grounds. He took the opportunity to ask Siddha Swarupananda Goswami and some of our ISKCON authorities about their dispute. He wanted to hear all points of contention in order to try to settle a long simmering quarrel amongst the leaders of that time. Mother Dvish spoke up first. His South Seas zone was the most seriously affected when Siddha Swarup and his followers left ISKCON. They practically left ISKCON. One temple had to be closed and several others were depleted in manpower. Siddha's group is most active in New Zealand and Australia, sometimes causing friction with anti-ISKCON propaganda. Mother Swami itemized few points of contention, especially the tendency of Swarup's followers to focus their allegiance on him rather than on Prabhupada. He also complained that they preferred to distribute books written by Swarup rather than Srila Prabhupada. Siddha Swarup vigorously denied the allegations. Prabhupada himself said he didn't think that Swarup's having a following was a serious thing. On the whole, he seemed to minimize the complaints against Swarup. He hoped to heal their hurt and told them in a good, humored fashion, whatever is done. Now let us make some adjustments and work combinedly. That is my proposal. Siddha Swarup, however, didn't think he could comply with this request. Srila Prabhupada, the problem is that to work combinedly, they think that it means that I surrender to them and I do everything as they say. Otherwise, I am not surrendering. So as far as I am concerned, I cannot work with them. The discussion became a little acrimonious as Swarupananda became increasingly defensive. He eventually revealed his underlying mentality by adamantly proclaiming that he would never accept control by anyone, especially not the GBC. Prabhupada offered to make him a GBC member, but he refused even to consider this alternative. This seemed to be real crux of the issue. He doesn't want to work with his god brothers on any level. He was extremely influential personality. Must have been a yogi in his previous life because he was very charismatic. Kirtans, he would lead beautiful kirtans. You can actually go and hear his kirtans on YouTube. You will understand that this person is actually very, very powerful. Another of Mother Maharaj's complaints was that those who left ISKCON to join Swarupananda now lack the discipline they had formerly. Like they wouldn't shave, they wouldn't cut their hairs on their head, the hair would be grown, and they won't use the Vaishnava attire as well. So that's what they're speaking about here. This seemed to strike a chord with Srila Prabhupada. He clearly explained that unless there is discipline, there is no question of disciple. Swarupananda didn't have any agreement with that. but said he considered that the person being disciplined must voluntarily put himself under someone's discipline. Srila Prabhupada agreed with this point. Accepting a spiritual master means voluntarily accepting somebody to rule you. There is no question. I have no power to rule over you unless you voluntarily surrender. See, that's what it means to become a disciple. Like Vaidhi sadhana, bhakti basically means to go through some inconvenience. Even it may not be your inclination, but you've got to do it. Like we are not trained to wake up early in the morning, right? But still we have to do it. Srila Prabhupada agreed with this point. Accepting a spiritual master means voluntarily accepting somebody to rule you. There is no question, I have no power to rule over you unless you voluntarily surrender. When Guru Kripa Swami mentioned that Vaidhi Bhakti means sometimes doing things that one does not like to do, Prabhupada also agreed. To illustrate the point, he told a story of a famous lawyer during the days of the British rule, C.R. Das, who was earning a huge amount of money. He was also a supporter of the Congress party. But in a meeting, it was decided that party members should not cooperate with the British court system. C.R. Das supported the proposal offering to use his earnings to promote the party, but the resolution was passed. This meant he lost everything, but because the majority decided, he had to do it. Prabhupada said that, of course, we are not interested in democracy. We follow the instructions of the spiritual master. But the point is that we have to work in a cooperative and systematic way to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. The people may be highly benefited. So this is a very interesting point, right? Cooperative and systematic. So there should be a plan actually to spread Krishna consciousness. It should be organized. Like you should even have a map set out. Like when we were doing Sankirtan in the whole of South Africa, we had a map, and we should have a pen. So when we should go into a certain area, then that pen we actually strike out that area, and in each area we put how many books we distributed, like that. And we even had a book where we put down people's names. I don't know, I think my brother has that information. And he still communicated some of the people that we have met. But the point is that we have to work in a cooperative and systematic way to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, so that people may be highly benefited. But this is very important, right? Because amongst devotees there may be rifts. But these things you have to overcome it, because it's not because of what I think and what I feel should be done. It's because the people are struggling, or the people are suffering with their mind, in the sense that we worry about our own self and our own things, what we want to do. Then the world is actually neglected of this consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So that's why Prabhupada is stressing that avoid any rifts. And in this way, devotees should get the opportunity to become Krishna consciousness and spread it. Because if we quarreling all the time, it's not possible for you to remember the Lord, right? You will be worried about fighting all the time, arguing all the time. So this is not the process, right? And it's amazing, you have to take into account how Prabhupada actually dealt with the situation. He was trying to avoid conflict, and he was trying to make resolutions whereby people can come together with a proper understanding. Ultimately, in Prabhupada's summation, he said, there seemed to be disagreement not in the philosophy but in the matter of process. You are thinking this way, he is thinking that way. That is the difference. Otherwise, he is all eager to push Krishna consciousness. You also. Swarupananda, he wants to spread Krishna consciousness. Mother Louise wants to spread Krishna consciousness. However, they both got different ideas on the do it. But Prabhupada was saying, Swarupananda, although he had many people that were attracted to him, he said that's fine. He said that's fine, but he also said, as long as they don't take initiation while the spiritual master is still on the planet. Like, even amongst us, you may be initiated by a certain spiritual master. However, you may be inclined to a Vaishnava who is not your spiritual master, initiated by a certain spiritual master, but you may have some affinity for another spiritual leader. And that's okay. That's okay. He can be your instructing spiritual master, Shiksha spiritual master. Tamal Krishna Maharaj suggested the problem was that both parties believed Prabhupada was thinking their way. So Prabhupada brought the discussion to an end by declaring that he will give his personal verdict and they should not accept that. And they should all accept that. Not your way, not this way. Let me understand what is the way you are trying to follow. What is the way he is trying to follow. Now I shall give my verdict that this is the right way. Turning to Swarupananda, he asked, are you agreeable to this? Yes. Then thank you. No more talk now. We shall talk later. About midday, as Prabhupada took his massage on the robe, Swarupananda Maharaj came to see him with a nice poem he had written. He was upset, crying as he read it out by way of apology for his defensive manner during the earlier conversation. After talking sympathetically with him for a few minutes, Prabhupada had me find Mother Louise. As the two sat before him, he discussed the dispute. Now, in a much more relaxed mode, Prabhupada urged him to settle their differences. He gave them indications of what he did and did not approve. Swarupananda and his followers are not inclined to worship deities in a large temple setting. Yet some of them have recently asked for Brahmanical initiation in order to worship deities in their own homes. Prabhupada told Swarupananda that deity worship is not introduced in private homes until his men have been trained up to the proper standard found in ISKCON temples. However, he gave full endorsement for their kirtan and prasadam distribution programs. Swarupananda has also been criticized for not strictly adhering to fundamental practices like attending Mangala Arati, worshipping the deity, wearing the attire of the sannyas. So Prabhupada requested him to travel with him for a while so as to become more fixed up in the regulations of the sannyas life. However, Siddha Swarup was not keen on this idea and declined Prabhupada's offer. He said that he preferred to preach on his own, as I know how. But somehow, Jai Shri Radha Radha Ki Jai, Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Although you can see, here's a person, it seems like this person is not listening to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada is somehow or other not rejecting him. Prabhupada is trying to negotiate with his disciple here to make him agree with him. He's not saying, you're not listening to me, you got to get out. No, he's it is not doing that. Although Prabhupada's disciples are trying to get rid of it. But Prabhupada is not. Although this personality, he got his own followers, moved out of Islam, but Prabhupada is trying to get him back in. Because why? To spread Krishna consciousness. He sees as a person has the ability. He has the nature. He's renounced. He has all these qualities. Well, Prabhupada asked him to travel with him to actually teach him what is real renunciation. But Prabhupada was very nice to him. Prabhupada didn't push the point that he said. Prabhupada didn't push the point. And he said that as long as Bhagavad Gita is disputed, there is no fault. But he did ask him to shave his head. When matters appeared settled, Prabhupada asked each of them how old he was. Mother Swami was elder by 1 year. Just 1 year, right? You may think, hey, this guy is really not far away, but this is what Prabhupada said. Turning to Swarupananda, Prabhupada said, so Mother Grace is your senior to you, both in age and in sannyas. So you work cooperatively together and take good instruction from him. Sometimes if your seniors are even wrong, according to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, you should not argue, even if they're wrong. Outside Prabhupada's room, they offered their obeisances to each other and embraced. So to some extent, relations were improved by the meditation of Srila Prabhupada's touch, and he seemed to be eating the roof. After they had gone, I questioned Srila Prabhupada again on the criticism that Swarupananda's men are more attached to him than to Prabhupada. Prabhupada shrugged it off, saying, it is all right, it's not harmful. He said that each of us has to become a guru and accept many disciples. But as a matter of etiquette, one should wait until his own spiritual master has departed before doing so. After lunch, I questioned him further. He told me that having a following is not such a serious offense. But if someone thinks that he is qualified and accepts disciples in the presence of his own spiritual master, that in itself would be his disqualification. Replying to my question whether one has to be a pure devotee to make disciples, he said that one has to be strictly following the principles. That's Prabhupada's answer. So one may say, hey, but is your spiritual master pure devotee? And then you can go back to what Prabhupada is saying. And once Prabhupada was asked, are you on that level? Uttamadikari. The Prabhupada was very upset that his disciples asked him this question. He said, what is the use of your question? Because this can be offensive actually. To ask a spiritual master if he's a Uttamadikari or whatever, he's a pure devotee. If he's following the principles of Srila Rupa Goswami that how he has set up, he's actually on the level of pure devotional service. One should not question the Vaishnava on what level of Vaishnava is he. That's offensive. Replying to my question, whether one has to be a pure devotee to make disciples, he said, one has to be strictly following the principles. That is the requirement. Then he can be considered to be on the pure platform. So these are the indications to see if the person is actually following Srila Prabhupada. Nowadays you see it becomes a norm to criticize the Vaishnavas, especially those who are sannyasis, like our spiritual masters. The worst thing that was created is Facebook. I don't have Facebook. But when I meet other devotees, they tell me, hey, how this devotee is blaspheming this Maharaj, blaspheming that Maharaj. This is the problem. They're not reading Srila Prabhupada books. That's the problem. Not much mail is coming in now. Since most leaders a year for the festival, but today Pushpa Krishna Swami read out a pleasing letter from Robert Vega. Who can tell me who is that? Robert Vega. Okay, I'll give you some time, but this question remains. A science student in Dallas, Texas. Still don't know. Okay. He studied physics and math, but he comes regularly to the temple and chants 16 rounds. Robert began by glorifying Srila Prabhupada. You are the only person that I have approached that claims with logical argument to be relaying the undaunted truth. Every scientist that I have ever approached for truth reprimanded me quickly by stating that absolutes are not part of the real world, and therefore only relative truths can exist. Although some scientists are deists, they do not have a place for God in everyday activities. I therefore submit to you as my authority. Who is this? Ravindra Swarup. Good. Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. His idea is to attempt to prove the scientists using their own weapons of mathematical trickery, logic, deductive and inductive instruments. They are wrong in their conclusions, he wrote. And once this is done, the knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam can be presented and verified to the best extent possible. However, he has received conflicting advice from the devotees on whether he should continue with his studies and what his service should be. Therefore, he requested Srila Prabhupada guidance, because the early devotees told him, you in Maya, Prabhu, why are you studying all this science, all this theology and all these things there? Just join the temple, chant 16 rounds and preach. This is what Prabhupada says. Srila Prabhupada was very glad to receive such a letter. It was once again a confirmation that his books are having the effect he desires. Although he often says he is a layman in the science field, his arguments are convincing many men of science and the fallibility of their theories and superiority of the Vedic version. In his reply, he encouraged Robert to continue with his studies. Yeah, go to university. There is a Bengali proverb, To shil to noda, to bhungi tater goda. I take your water and pestle and break your teeth. This means we use the scientists' own weapons, and with them we defeat their atheistic philosophy. That's amazing. That's very powerful. Yeah, one example is that they have created all the technology and everything, right? But we use the same thing to discard all the ideas that they are presenting to the world, all the atheistic views, and we present the science of Krishna consciousness, right? Sharma Das came over from his highway. So you can continue your studies and learn what is shil and noda, mortar and pestle, so you can break their data goda, break their teeth. Sharma Das came over from his highway at the Goshala at 4 p.m. to see Srila Prabhupada with a request to leave Mayapur. He wanted to go to chant at Radhakan. With so many devotees here, now, for the festival, he complained that he is again being disturbed in his chanting. I read about this in the Leelamrita many years ago when I read the whole Leelamrita. And Prabhupada was extremely angry at this whole situation. He had one disciple who was associated with Bhagavad, and he wanted to chant all his arms there. Prabhupada told him that this indicated that his mind was restless. Yeah. chant Nirjan Bhajan. Prabhupada said it's meant for Haridas Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. They can chant alone. It's like your chanting doesn't listen to you. Right? But if you hear another person chanting, your mind may get worried that this person's chanting may make me a Vaishnava. Prabhupada told him that this indicated that his mind was restless. Previously he had asked to live in a tree and now Naraka. You are not fit for Nirjan Bhajan, means continuously chanting. Srila Prabhupada told him, this is for the Mahabhagavats like Haridas Thakur, who are completely undisturbed. Thakur Haridas lived in a cave with a large snake and was not disturbed, was not perturbed. He added that if one's mind is even a little disturbed, Nirjan Bhajan will not be possible. That's why we have so many other activities that we do to purify the mind. Because the mind is restless. Right? So the other activities are actually part of the 64 rounds that we're supposed to chant. After this meeting, Sharma Prabhu later told Kusu Krishna Swami that he had decided to return to Africa and preach. Prabhupada was pleased to hear this. Sharma Prabhu saved himself. In the evening, Prabhupada told Kusu Krishna Maharaj and myself that he likes the idea of having one servant along with sannyas as his secretary. Pushka Krishna Maharaj is very competent. When I hear this name, Pushka Krishna Maharaj, we are very touched, right? Because he was one of the first devotees that came to South Africa. After Shri Prabhu left, he is the one that came and relieved him. And so that's why we owe a lot to him. And apart from the regular secretarial duties, is also transcribing Srila Prabhupada's translations and commentaries. Prabhupada said that I should become trained up in cooking. Then if we travel, it will be convenient and inexpensive. Like we traveled to Namibia. And what we were cooking, we didn't have enough spices. We were just using turmeric and salt. And we used dal and rice to make the khichdi. But only we could eat it. We couldn't invite anyone to eat that. It wasn't so palatable. But now I know how to make khichdi. So when we eventually travel, we will make good khichdi. Hearing that some Australian devotees have been purchasing fruit from the market, and also remembering Prabhupada's previous comment that no one should eat anything without first offering it to the deities, I asked him if they should stop. What do you all think? Fruit from the market. You offer it to the deities? The sun will be out there, you know. Even if you can be out there, right there, out on the street. Prabhupada wasn't disturbed. He replied, fruit may be offered within the mind. Today I presented Srila Prabhupada with some neck beads, strung and cleaned up by Rasarja Das, a young Australian devotee working the Namahata party in Japan. The tiny beads on his existing strand were beginning to split off, so he decided the new set, and to my great delight gave me the old ones, some of which are present in Rasarja Prabhu. Okay, I'm gonna stop by. What's the time?
8:60.
Should I complete it like that? I only got 2 pages left. I'll just read through it. Right? March 9, 1976. During the walk, Srila Prabhupada again criticized some of his godbrothers. So some would say, hey, all fine. You better be a Mahabhagavat to do that, right? During the war, Srila Prabhupada again criticized some of his God brothers for making false claims. He said that in 60 years they have not been able to attract any foreign students. Nor have they published any books. Still they are in place and proudly claim to have all the blessings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. As we walked, the discussion turned to how to combat the flooding of the Ganges in our future city here in Mayapur. He told us to make a system of canals to drain the land. He also suggested that we should use the need of the flood avoidance as a reason to get our land acquisition application through on an emergency basis. Prabhupada urged us to use our abilities as Europeans and Americans to make our plans. He joked that even though he is an Indian, I have no Indian plans. My plans are all American. He told us that generally when Indians think of immigrating, they head for London. But in the days when he was planning to go to the West, he only thought of going to America. He was even dreaming sometimes that he had come to New York. Now, the movement has a good reputation with the Indian government. Although having so many American followers can also be a problem. Prabhupada said that Indira Gandhi has such high regard for him that she received him even in the midst of national emergency. She had expressed great appreciation and faith in him for what he has done, but she admitted she is afraid of the Americans. Toward the end of the walk, Madhu Grace brought up a question about the role of the sannyas, brahmacharya, and grihastha in ISKCON. In one of your purports, you say that sannyas should never discourage young men from getting married. But on the other hand, we have understood that the sannyasi should encourage young men to remain brahmachari. So it seemed to me like a bit of some kind of Prabhupada replied, according to time circumstances, just like Krishna says, Niyata Kuru Karmatvam, always be engaged in your prescribed work. And at last, he says, Sarva Dharman Parityaga Mamikam Sharanam Praja. Now, we have to adjust. That is not contradiction. That is suitable to the time and circumstance. Karma Kanda is also recommended in the Vedas. There are three divisions, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. Upasana Kanda. You have to become the eternal servant of Krishna. Either you go through karma or jnana yoga. It doesn't matter. The ultimate aim is to how to reach Krishna. That is one thing. The GBCs came to see Srila Prabhupada at the end of their meeting. Again they gathered in his room. And one by one, the results of their day's deliberations were read out. They have been debating the sannyas grihastha issue and wanted Srila Prabhupada's confirmation on some new guidelines on how those in grihastha ashrams should be handled. They have made a series of strictures aimed at preventing householders, including temple presidents, from being financially dependent on the society. Their idea is that the society should not become overburdened and thus have its resources diverted from the preaching of it. The proposals are very restrictive, and not even all the GBC sannyasis are in agreement as to how far they should go in implementing them. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, with one or two other sannyasis, is the main driving force behind the new reforms. As the GBC chairman, he spoke logically to each point as it came up for Srila Prabhupada's approval, philosophically establishing its necessity, strictly distinguishing the interests of the society and promoting it over the individual concerns. After hearing all their arguments and resolutions, Srila Prabhupada accepted most of them, but he requested the removal of one designed to prevent single women with their children from joining the temple. Because in the early days, it's explained that young women were joining the temple with their small kids, and they would do nothing the whole day. They would just take care of the children. The children would be running around. They weren't doing anything constructive in the temple. So the sannyasis at that time wanted them to leave the temple. But Prabhupada, he said, you'll actually have a good point, but where would they go? At least if they remain here, they would hear about Krishna and then become instrumental, become constructive in the future. So he would give them prasadam and all these things, and hopefully in the future they get purified and do some service. After hearing all their arguments and resolutions, Prabhupada accepted most of them. But he requested the removal of one designed to prevent single women with children from joining the temple. And he dismissed another which required a man to remain financially responsible for his wife and family for his whole life up to the point of taking sannyas. Prabhupada emphasized that our principle is to give facility to everyone to become detached from sex life and come to Krishna consciousness. He said, the Grihasthas live physically apart from the temple if husband and wife should wish to associate together. But after the 2 or 3 children, he said, what is needed is to continue living together. If they want to improve their Krishna consciousness, he said, they should separate. The man can move to a different temple and dedicate himself to preaching. Although he said that the Vanaprastha ashram may not be accepted before one is 50 years old. The woman, and after taking Vanaprastha and leaving one's wife, one should not be attracted to sex life again. That's another point, which is you have to guard yourself from fall downs. And fall down before it can happen grossly or physically, it happens in the mind. So in this way one should protect his mind. If a man wishes to separate from his family when his children are young, he must still send money for their support. Srila Prabhupada said that we can give them facility to become detached, but they cannot be irresponsible. When the children reach 8 years old, they may be sent to Gurukul in India, and ISKCON will take full responsibility for them. On other business, the sannyas initiation issue was finalized. The GBC confirmed the new system whereby nominations can be made only by the GBC men who are sannyasis. The nominee must then work at least 1 year with the GBC member before being given his tree danda. Srila Prabhupada ki. So all that being said, we have to pray to Srila Prabhupada every day that we actually remain strict in following the process of Krishna consciousness and become instrumental in spreading Krishna consciousness, which will be done. Now you actually following the process and you're trying to maintain something every day. You're actually trying to become instrumental, in the upkeep of principles of Krishna consciousness and trying to give it to others. It may seem that you are not being very productive, but just follow this process. There will be a time when there will be lots of things that you will do. We all have to actually just stick to the process. Because a little bit increments of advancement you make, they all build up and they push one day that you will do something very great. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. Are there any comments or any realizations? If not, you all know the way, where to do and what to do. Hare Krishna.